Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It's another episode of the In the Clutch podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Michael. I'm joined by my two co-hosts, the Clutch Sports Media staff, Larry Larson and John Camosa, here tonight. Guys, how's you guys' day been? It's gonna be another good week of high school football. It's honestly, we're getting close, 2/3 of the way done with the regular season already.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. And it's hey, good to be back on the podcast. I don't
A
remember when my
warm
last
welcome. I
appearance was, or if it's maybe this is my first appearance, but thanks for having me.
Glad to have you back on. Warm welcome back.
Yeah, and John, like you said, I mean, it felt like we just started the season, and it goes by so quick. I mean, it's hard to believe only a few weeks left, but had some exciting games so far. A couple lopsided games, but all in all, it's been a really good season with some teams that are really kind of stepping up big this year. So
Yeah, you're definitely right, Joko. And one thing about this year, and especially we learned last week, obviously, maybe not the best slate of marquee games, but there's a lot of teams that are really good. Some teams that are definitely in different spots just as a program. Trying to rebuild. So there's a couple of teams though kind of stuck in the middle. We'll kind of get more into that later. Got an exciting segment coming up later in the show about that, but certainly a lot of really good teams to watch. We saw one of them this past week. We'll start off by recapping our games we broadcasted last Friday. We saw Morton and Pekin. And, guys, Joko, I know you were there at that game. Larry, I know you were in a different state doing some spotting work for ESPN. So certainly excusable
Indeed.
that you didn't really maybe see much, at least from that game. But, is a, Morton dominant performance. Jude Hart at quarterback looked really good, and the Potters threw the ball a little bit more than we expected them to.
yeah, Jude Hart, he's really a senior leader on this team. He played the entire game, even when they were up big at the end. But that just goes to show you how much he means to Morton as a team. And Coach Adam O'Neill even said that he's a leader out there. He gets those guys fired up in practice, before the game, during the game, and it was honestly a really close game early. Impressed with Pekin's defense. A lot of penalties both ways, but Morton only had a 15-0 lead, almost an entire second quarter that went scoreless up until that last minute. It's when Morton really poured it on. They had two touchdowns, one by Brett Michael, and then almost 30 seconds later, a 57-yard interception return by Silas Steffen. That really kind of capped it off right there. It was the big momentum shift. And from there, Pekin could really never get back into that game. More penalties in the second half, and Morton, Jude Hart again stepped up big in the second half, had another touchdown, and they really capped this one off big. It was a statement win. Pekin lost a lot of guys from last year, but 42-14, pretty impressive to go 5-0 and earn their spot in the playoff.
Yeah, I've been impressed with Morton from afar. I haven't had a chance to watch him in person quite yet, but I think that'll change if they keep playing the way they are right now. I mean, just looking at their schedule, what they've been able to do at the start of conference play. I mean, the first two non-conference wins in and of itself were very impressive. A long trip up to Rochelle, and then Muhammad Seymour is a consistent power. Those are two games where you look at Morton last year. I think that Morton team last year loses both those games, and they've got those two games under their belt, and it's been full steam ahead since.
Yeah, certainly they've really got it done on both sides of the ball. Joko, you mentioned Brett Michael. He's been such a force on offense and defense. Just his amount of plays where he either makes, his amount of TFLs, sacks, forced fumbles, interceptions have all been huge. And an interception in last week's game. And then obviously, he's there to spell Sean and Buffington too. Again, Buffington had a really good game as well. Maybe just didn't get, quite as many carries or as many yards as he did, but 16 carries for 88 yards and a touchdown. That'll still get it done. Jude Hart
That'll play.
had a long touchdown run. Yeah. And to think that that's Buffington's by far, that's his worst game, at least, yardage wise this year. Obviously, if you look at his yards per carry, it's still all there and everything. So I think that win for Morton really showed how complete of a team they are. Obviously, gave up 14 points at the end, whatever, kind of, sort of in garbage time, whatever, but their defense was great. Pekin, struggled, to kind of move the ball much. They got good field position all night long. They just couldn't really, do much with it. But on the bright side for the Dragons, Joko, you mentioned their defense at the start was really good. I think even though Buffington had a good game, they contained him well. They didn't let him just run absolutely hog wild. Pun actually was not intended there, hog wild. But I'll stop with that now. But anyway, Pekin will certainly be looking for a bounce back this week against Metamora. Their backs are against the wall. They have to win out to get back to the playoffs. Morton, though, has already clinched the playoff eligibility, at least. Certainly think that they're a lock for the postseason. And then our other game, was a game that neither one of us were at. Gavin Russell, Brock Stotler on the call. DMAC and Eureka. Eureka won that one big, 42-8. Get back to 3-2 on the year. DMAC, story for them. You really feel bad. They're dealing with a lot of injuries right now, but nonetheless, a big win for Eureka.
Yeah, I was glad we're able to get out and showcase an HOIC game. Obviously, DMAC, great program, but Eureka has just continued to roll, had that big year last year, and now this year they're just picking up right where they left off. What they've been able to put together is very impressive, through the air, on the ground, really a dynamic offense. And to beat DMAC that handily, obviously they're dealing with a lot of injuries, and we cover a lot of bigger schools, but you got to keep in mind with those smaller schools, class 4A and lower, you get 1, 2, maybe even 3 key injuries. It's enough to really derail a whole season. But I still think that's a really impressive win for Eureka, especially on the defensive side.
Yeah, what Eureka was able to do in that game, I did not anticipate that game being that lopsided. I thought it was going to be back and forth, but I said it in last week's podcast. Eureka now with a statement win like that, a really good chance to potentially win out. Last year, we saw him just kind of rolling through the season. This year, face some adversity, drop 2, but really kind of finding, their touch right now on both offense and defense. And Eureka's that team to definitely keep an eye on going forward.
Yeah, certainly. I have my eye on them as well. And again, they a couple, two, tough losses. One of them was to a very good Shelbyville team, a team that's not really around the area further south of here, I believe, but they're always around in the class 2A and 3A polls. And they lost to Gibson City Melvin Sibley by 20 at home the week before. So that was a bit of a head scratcher for me. I know GCMS is, pretty good this year, but nevertheless, a nice bounce back for Eureka. And, Larry, back to your point, they've been a really good offense, especially after replacing a lot of key pieces. I mean, they had a really good quarterback in Jake Morin last year. They had probably one of the best, wide receiver groups in the entire area. I know now they're, maybe a little bit more running the ball this year, but they can still throw it as well. And their defense has been good as well. So definitely keep an eye on the Hornets over there in the HOIC. But anyway, kind of, moving in, just recapping the other action from around the area. I'm going to pull up some of the scores from last week. Obviously, at least in the Mid-Illini, kind of a week of what we expected. Not a lot of close games. Big wins for Metamora over Canton, 53-7. Dunlap over East Peoria, 47-6. Washington, 49-0 over Limestone. Guys, not sure about you, but I don't got much to say about those games. Not really surprised.
No, the teams that you expected to win kind of took care of business.
Yeah, and a chance for, especially, in the Washington game, Daryl Crouch's last season, and led by 27 seniors on that team, but it was nice for some guys to get in there, some backups who might not see the field a whole lot, and they got to play that entire second half. So games like that, it's good for some backup guys to get in there, get some experience, get some reps. But yeah, last week kind of expected that some of our more dominant teams to, win handily.
Yeah, and definitely staying in the Mid-Illini. I mean, there's going to be a lot of really good games coming down the stretch. I know, last week and this upcoming week, maybe not quite as many marquee matchups in the Mid-Illini, but you got Washington Dunlap week 7, you got Morton and Dunlap week 8, you got Washington and Morton in week 9, and really any one of those games could end up, being a conference championship game, at least a de facto one. So there's going to be a lot of good games going down the stretch. Kind of moving over to the Big 12. P&D, a 27-22 win over Jacksonville on the road. So the Irish overcome about I would say, an hour and a half, hour 45-minute road trip against a Central State opponent. That was a big win. Peoria High blew out Manual 58-0. Normal Community shut out Bloomington 34-zip. Normal West 49-14 over Richwoods. That was most of the action in the Big 12 conference. And, guys, at least, like I said this week, pick a game that, was the most impressive win for a team. And for me, I think it's going to be, at least so far, these games we mentioned, I think it's got to be P&D over Jacksonville.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that statement. In our pick'em, hand up, I picked Jacksonville to win, and P&D proved me wrong. So kudos to the Irish, who once again they're really one of the models of consistency in the area. Obviously, they're almost always an under the radar team in the Big 12, and they're always winning. But it's teams like Peoria High, Normal Community, Normal West these last few years who have kind of stolen the headline. But hey, here's P&D sitting at 4-1. You could argue that was their biggest test yet. That road loss at Bloomington being their only loss, obviously that was a big test. But John mentioned that long bus trip to Jacksonville, a team that's always formidable, usually in the postseason. That's a really strong win.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could make it 3 for 3 here. At hands down, one of the most impressive wins on the schedule last week. And for Notre Dame, dropping that game to Bloomington, then able to come back 2 weeks later, 2 weeks later, and face adversity. It's a long trip, like you guys said, and to really grind out a win against a very tough Jacksonville team. Notre Dame's got Normal Community coming up later down the road, but this is a team that's looking really good on the ground. They got strong defense, and Jack Hanley at running back. He's a kid that really wants to win. He, when he scores a touchdown, there's no celebration. He just puts the ball right back in the referee's hands, and he's got his head down. And I think the whole team kind of channels off that energy, and you can really see they got a goal set forth to go out there and win, and it definitely showed on Friday night.
Yeah, certainly a big bounce back season incoming for the P&D Irish, who they've already exceeded their win total from last year. They went 3-6, dropped some close games, including an upset loss to Richwoods. Now they've already exceeded that. They're on the doorstep of the postseason. I think that win against Jacksonville was really big for them. Just real quick, wrapping up other scores. I keep up to date with stuff around the area last week. In the Lincoln Trail Prairie Land Conference, Farmington pulled out a thriller against Elmwood Brimfield 30-26. That wasn't a game I expected to really be that close. Obviously, it's a big rivalry game. Me and Cody Roskins broadcasted that last year, I should say. And it was a really, really good game. Farmington's been rolling. That was certainly a big win for them. Hayworth took down Fieldcrest 29-28. I know Fieldcrest is a team that's kind of the edge of our coverage area, but they've had a good year. They had a 2-point conversion that was batted down, I think, right near the end of the game. So tough way to lose for the Knights, who are looking to get back into the playoffs. Princeville beat Monmouth United 36-20. Tremont fell big to Ridgeview Lexington. Tri-Valley, big win for El Paso Gridley over at EPG, I should say, 31-13. And another team that I think was probably the most impressive win, Bloomington Central Catholic beats Tolono Unity, who is one of the best teams in the state traditionally in Class 2 and 3A, by 28, 42-14.
Man,
Yeah, what
you bring up that big rivalry game with EB and Farmington. That kind of goes to show you, hey, those rivalry games, you never know what you're gonna get. You always those games bring out the best in teams, and EB certainly the underdog in that game. A good run, if there's ever a moral victory, I think maybe that's it. Almost beating Farmington to hand them their first loss. That's got to give them some confidence moving forward. But hey, Tri-Valley, back at it again, 5-0. Farmington now 5-0. Good handful of 5-0 teams around the area. So it's good to see.
Yeah, with Farmington able to, edge that one out, they know they're going to get every team's best shot here. It's still undefeated on the year. And then, John, you mentioned Bloomington Central Catholic in our pick'ems last week. That was kind of a game that we were 50-50 on. Some people saying Central Catholic, some saying Unity. Really just a toss-up game, but I did not see that big of a blowout win coming. And facing a very tough St. Joe Ogden team who's 4-1 this season on Friday night, if they can handle up on them like they did on Unity, I am completely sold. Not that I haven't already been sold on BCC, but they look like a playoff team that can make a long run.
Certainly, and I was able to talk to Bloomington Central Catholic, their head coach Kevin Brock, and some of their players this week. That's going to be coming up right up here soon in the podcast. So don't go anywhere. Gonna want to stay around for that. But quickly before we do that, guys, a fun segment we had planned. We're gonna, with it being 5 weeks through the regular season, the playoff picture is starting to come a little more into view. There's a lot that could happen in these last couple of weeks, but a lot of these teams are probably thinking about playoffs. Some of them have already clinched. Some of them have their backs against the wall and they need to win out. So a couple of teams around the area that what I'm going to do is where I'm going to say lock, should be in, and work to do. I'm going to say a team, give you their record and their upcoming games. You tell me if you think they'll be a lock for the playoffs, meaning they'll get to 5-4, and they should be in, means they'll probably be in, and work to do means that's self-explanatory. So we'll start here in the middle line. I'll start with Metamora. They're 3-2 at the moment. Again, coming off a bounce back win over Canton. They host Pekin, host Limestone, go to East Peoria, and host Dunlap. Guys, what do you think?
I'll let Joko start here.
I'm gonna say a lock. I think these next 3 games they can win. I think the toughest game for them outside of Dunlap will be this game at home. I'm saying that because Pekin's defense, what I saw from them in the first half, if they're able to limit some of their penalties on offense and get some things to click, this could be a game that's close in the first half. I think Metamora pulls away there from them, but between East Peoria and Limestone, those are 2 games that they should handle business there. And then Dunlap, if they can ride momentum off those 3 wins, if they potentially get them, you never know. But this is a Metamora team that's traditionally been good, so you can never count them out again.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Joko. I think Metamora is a consensus lock. Pekin, with their backs against the wall, is going to give them their best shot. I'm kind of with Joko here in that it could be a sneaky good game, but Limestone and EP, having a bit of down years, and I think Metamora should be favored in those games. And you go into that Dunlap game with 4 straight wins. Who knows what could be a nice hope for a round of the playoffs.
That's certainly, I agree with you guys there. I had them as a lock. Limestone, East Peoria, they'll win those games. I think they'll win at least one of those games against Pekin and Dunlap. So they kind of, drop down a bit weeks 3 and 4, 2 straight losses. I'll be the Redbirds having any trouble getting back in. Now, do a team we just mentioned also in the middle of the night, Pekin. They are 1-4 at the moment. Now, so their backs are against the wall. They are at Metamora. They host Canton, at Limestone, then host East Peoria.
Oh, man. This could work out to be maybe the most brutal bad luck schedule for Pekin because, the middle Illini schedule, it ebbs and flows, right? You look at their schedule, they got Dunlap and Washington right off the bat, 2 teams that look like some of the best teams in the state and certainly in the area. And then you roll into Morton, who's had a resurgence this year. Wow, that's a bit of a gauntlet right out of the gate. But if you lose this week in Metamora, your chance of the playoffs is over. But you finish with Canton, Limestone, East Peoria, all games that are winnable. Man, you got to figure that Pekin's rear end ready to go for this game at Metamora. I think they're going to give Metamora their best shot, but I've got to go with work to do here for Pekin. And that work, most of it comes this week.
Yeah, certainly agree there with Larry. Lot of work to be done yet. But, if they can hang around in this game against Metamora, they can try to sneak out a late win. That's a lot of momentum going into those 3 games that they should be favorites in. But like Larry said, it really starts Friday night. You're playing at Malone Field on that new turf that was just installed this year. It's going to be a really tough game. Like I said, going to have to clean up penalties. I know it's a young team. They lost that entire core of seniors that made that deep playoff run last year. And, it's tough to kind of rebuild. I know you worked during the summer, but, having a whole new group of guys, it's tough. But you clean up the penalties, you play hard-nosed defense. You never know. You can't count out anybody out in high school football.
Yeah, certainly. And I also had Pekin also with work to do. Again, I think Canton, Limestone, East Peoria, games that I think they'll definitely, I think games that they should win. It really comes down to their game against Metamora this week. They're fighting for their playoff lives. And, I think if you survive this week, I think they're good. If not, then, you're hoping for some sort of miracle, which, by the way, for any Pekin fans or anybody out there watching this, there was one team last year that went 4-5 and got into the playoffs because there was not enough 5-4 teams. That was Buffalo Grove, who was either in Class 8A or 7A. I can't remember. But especially since Pekin had such a tough schedule and their opponents' wins or playoff points, you can say, and since that amount is going to be so high, there's an outside chance that Pekin could get away with losing this game and by a stroke of luck could still qualify for the playoffs at 4-5 because of how tough their schedule is. We'll just have to see. But just want to put that out there as an interesting note about the Dragons. So move over here to the Big 12 real quick, guys. P&D, they're at 4-1 right now. They host Champaign Central this week, then go at Centennial, at Community, and host Peoria High.
Yeah, it's tough because that's a very tough schedule. I mean, I think they beat Central. Centennials, they suffered their first loss last week. Peoria High, and then Community looks almost unstoppable. I mean, you look at their gauntlet of a schedule and everyone that they've steamrolled. I'm still going to say they're a lock. I think they can pull out this win this Friday. I think they'll be able to get through Centennial. It's going to be a close one, but really a toss-up. They'd have to play some of their best football against Community and Peoria High. But, if they can get to those 6 wins, if they win the next 2, I believe, obviously they're a lock. So.
I'll branch off from Joko a little bit. I'll go should be, because that's what I think when I see Champaign Central on the schedule for PND. Should be a win. I think Central would really have to pull off a big upset to get that win, and then obviously if PND wins that game, that gets them playoff eligible. But I mean, John mentioned it. That's a gauntlet in the last 3 weeks. Centennial has been very good these last few years, although I think that's another game that PND should win. Community, I don't think anybody's beating them in the regular season. I can say that pretty confidently. And then Peoria High, always a very, very tough game. So I'll go should be.
Yeah, certainly. And I'm kind of teetering on the edge of both. I'm going to say P&D is a lock. I think they do get done against Champaign Central, although Larry, you brought up a great point. Champaign Central is always a team that's always a candidate to maybe pull off a game that you don't expect them to each year. And P&D, again, they suffered some close losses last year. If they can keep on putting that behind them, I think they can hold on. But again, I'm right with you there. They should win that game, but I do think they will be either Central or Centennial, one of the two at least. And I think that would pretty much lock things up for them. So moving over to another Big 12 school, another one that has been one of the most interesting teams, I think, this year to follow has been Bloomington. Scott Godfrey's team is at 3-2 right now. They go at Centennial, home against Peoria High, at Champaign Central, and end at home against MacArthur from Decatur.
I was talking about it with a few folks, in Bloomington circles, and I circled that Danville game on their schedule. If they won that game, good chance they get back in the playoffs. If they lost that game, the path was going to be really tough with Normal Community, Peoria High, and Centennial still on the schedule. They came through with that win against Danville. They're coming off a loss against Normal Community, who, as we've mentioned, has dominated pretty much everybody they've played. I think they're a lock. I really do. Centennial is a team that just lost to Danville. That's a winnable game for Bloomington. And I also think they'll beat Champaign Central, if not also Decatur MacArthur week 9.
Yeah, I'm gonna say should be. I think this is a pretty tough schedule to end, but I've seen a lot of upside from Bloomington. Obviously, we go back to what we mentioned earlier, big win over Notre Dame earlier in the season. That was huge for them. Obviously suffered a shutout loss against Normal Community, but who hasn't, kind of gotten kicked around by them on the field this year? They're so dominant. And then, those last couple games should be, but I've seen really impressive things from Bloomington this year when they're clicking on all cylinders. So I like the offense and the defense, and I think they definitely should be.
Yeah, I'm gonna roll with you, Joko. I'm gonna say that Bloomington should be in. I really think that game against Centennial is one that I maybe at the start of the season didn't think, maybe not one I circled on my calendar, but obviously with Centennial losing to Danville last week. Obviously, the power of deduction. Obviously, Bloomington beat Danville and Danville beat Centennial. Well, common knowledge thinks that Bloomington should beat Centennial. However, we know that's not always the case, whatever. But, I think, that will be a really good game down in Champaign. Maybe one of the best of any area team this week. That pure high game is going to be tough for sure. I don't know the Purple Raiders can pull it off. However, you never know. I think they certainly have a shot in that game. And then they end with Central and MacArthur. Again, two teams that I think they should beat. I could see them maybe going 1-1 in those final two. But even still, I think that they'll get to at least 5-4. Probably no more than 6-3. But hey, a trip back to the playoffs for Bloomington is just that. They've been waiting for one for a while, so I think the Purple Raiders do get back there. Time for one more small school, real quick. We'll go with let's go with Eureka, who we just saw last week. You're at 3-2 on the year. They are at Tremont. They host El Paso Gridley, go on the road to Ridgeview, Lexington, and end at home against Tri-Valley.
I'm going to say work to be done for Eureka. That's pretty. There's probably 2 games in there that they should win. It's hard to say with Tri-Valley. Like their chances against Tremont. That's tough though. That's four games down the stretch there, and then ending with Tri-Valley. That's never easy. So if they're right on the brink there, could be a tough way to close out. But definitely work to be done. But good upside in Eureka. Huge win against DMAC, and I think that can definitely give them some momentum going forward into this week. But definitely still some work to be done for the Hornets.
I'm going to go with a positive outlook for Eureka here. I'm going to go should be. Tremont, that's a win. Tremont sort of rebuilding right now. El Paso Gridley, that should be a great game. Ridgeview Lexington, obviously that's on the road. But that's a game I see Eureka winning if they play their best football. Tri-Valley, that's probably a loss, but if you beat Tremont and Ridgeview Lexington, that gets you to 5 wins, and then maybe you could get to 6. So I think Eureka should be. I think Tremont's that game is a lock, but those last 3 could kind of go either way. So I'll go should be.
Certainly, I'm gonna say Eureka is a lock. Again, like you said, Tremont, they're gonna win that game. Ridgeview Lexington, still a decent team, but they're not really quite what they were, last year. They got a new head coach, a lot of graduation after last year's team, which is very, very good. I think they'll beat Ridgeview Lexington for sure. And I also see him beating at least one out of the 2 between EPG and Tri-Valley. So I think Eureka comfortably gets into the playoffs at 6-3. So I'm feeling pretty confident in the Hornets. So that wraps up for that segment. Time to toss now to my interview I had with Bloomington Central Catholic with head coach Kevin Brock. A couple of their players. Stay tuned right after the break. We'll be back to wrap things up here on the In the Clutch podcast. Guys, welcome. We have the Bloomington Central Catholic Saints here on the In the Clutch podcast. From left, we got head coach Kevin Brock and a couple of the Saints players. Guys, thanks for hopping on. A great start to the season so far. What's just been working well for you guys, I guess?
Well, appreciate you having us. And these guys are a big result of, or a big reason for our results right now. I think our team's really coming together well, and usually about mid-season, you really should have your identity down. I think we kind of figured that out, and we're just taking it one game at a time. Obviously, a little coach speak there, but that's truly what we kind of look at, kind of that 1-0 mentality, and these guys have really bought into that, doing that. And so far, so good. We're looking forward to a big challenge this week at St. Joe. Our conference, a road game it's always tough to win on the road in our conference. So, we know that, and we're preparing hard and can't wait to get to Friday night.
Sure thing. And guys, I mean, you guys are the ones that are on the field. I mean, I'm sure, obviously some big wins week 1 and week 2. Some, arguably even better wins against some strong opponents weeks 3 through 5. You guys are probably having some fun out there on the field, aren't you?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. That's just it. It's just that much fun.
Hey, when you're having fun, there's really not much else to it for sure. But guys, obviously, a big win for you guys last week, 42-14 over Tolono. Everything obviously is, a real conference power year in and year out. So sure, that probably felt good for the program. for some of the guys here and everything, just, it kind of in your mind, what do you think kind of went well? Aside other than obviously Colin Hayes running for 6 touchdowns.
Well, I'll tell you, for us, that was a benchmark win for our program. You had just alluded to it. Since we've been here as a staff, Toledo's won our league every year. So to win and to win in the fashion that we did, we felt very good about that. And these guys are a direct result of that. I really liked our offensive line and defensive line play. I mean, Colin did a fantastic job. Will Adelman did a fantastic job. But realistically, it starts up front for us. Those guys are only as good as the people up front. And then I think defensively, we're very improved this year. And all 3 of these guys are on the defense also. Sam's at linebacker, and Sam's been doing a really good job for us. But I think just our improved defense, allows us to have some missteps on offense every once in a while and not feel like we're pressing. So I feel like the guys are playing fast and free on both sides of the ball. And, like I said, it's put us in a position to have a good opportunity this weekend.
O-line's been blocking great.
Mm-hmm.
We've been running the ball great.
Defense is definitely shutting down all different types of offenses, like the PBL, like pounding the ball, and Monticello, like finesse throwing it. We've been able to adapt to all kinds of offenses and shut them down pretty effectively.
What about you, Jackson? What are we doing good?
I feel like up front, everyone's on the same page doing their job. I feel like defensive line wise, our opponents, we're blocking, doing our jobs right, and dominating every play, which, allows for Colin here, 6 touchdowns, like you said. So it's always pretty good to hear 6 touchdowns, see him a Pentagon Player of the Week. So stuff like that's really cool for us.
Yeah, certainly. And, obviously it seems like, it's all kind of coming together on all sides of the ball. Obviously, I know you guys have some, really good offensive linemen, including Jackson, coming into the year. But really, obviously we'll get to the offense here in a second, but the defense has been great. I remember when we talked at the start of the year, Coach Brock, that, I think you guys only had 1 defensive starter returning from last year, but you guys have only allowed 43 points through 5 weeks. So, overall, what's just kind of, has it just been a flip or a switch has been flipped on defense, new schematics, or just, what's it kind of been on defense, I guess?
So we did go through a scheme change in the offseason that I will say that has something to do with it for sure. Both our so we have 2 defensive coordinators, two coordinators, in Coach Jeff Porter and Coach Bob Crawford. And they did a good job in the offseason kind of identifying, things we needed to get better at to stop our conference opponents. I think the other reason for the scheme change was we finally got to a point within our program that we had enough linemen. And, in small school football, linemen are hard to come by sometimes. And our first 3 or 4 years here, we didn't have enough linemen. So we went with a 3-man front on defense because just by necessity, because of depth. But now we feel like we're deeper in the offensive and defensive lines. And because of that allowed us to make a scheme change. And due to that scheme change, I think, these guys have fit into that scheme well. We're extremely athletic. We have a lot of guys that can run sideline to sideline. So for example, like Sam's a good football player, but he's also a really good track athlete. And he's a 4x1, 4x2 guy. We got a handful of those guys on our defense running sideline to sideline. And because of that, a fast defense is a dangerous defense. So with the scheme change, with these guys' hard work in the offseason, and then putting guys in spots where they can, be fast and free and not think a lot and just do what they do best and be good athletes. So I really think, that's been a big key along with our front 4 up front. It's really, it's keeping those guys off of these 2 linebackers so they can run to the ball and make tackles.
You guys have a big game against St. Joseph Ogden this week. It, could potentially be the Illini Prairie Conference Championship. We don't know. What are you guys maybe kind of expecting and looking for out of that game?
I think if you know anything about St. Joe, they're extremely explosive. Their quarterback is as good as any quarterback in the league. Very talented, both with his arm and with his legs. So, we fully expect a very dynamic game. We're going to have to be very disciplined on defense to take care of the things that they do on offense. And they also run a little bit of a different scheme on defense that we see week to week. I mean, it's not anything we're not familiar with, but it's not something that we see, week in and week out. So you do have to make some changes to go against them. And they've done a really nice job over the last couple of years of kind of changing their offense. And it looks like they really got a groove of what they like to do. So listen, it's going to be a great game, at their new facility. So we're excited to go down there and see that and play in front of a good crowd, for Friday night. And, the winner of this game really kind of gets a leg up in the conference. So, the kids know that and they know what's at stake. And I don't think we're lacking any motivation by any means. But, we're really just trying to focus on us also. We talk a lot about us being our toughest opponent each week. And if we can take care of the things that we need to take care of, the scoreboard will take care of itself. But yeah, I can't wait to get there. I'll let these guys expand on anything else that, that next or this week provides. What do you guys think?
I feel like this week, it's just as you've seen, a road game in our conference is always going to be tough. We've been told that. I've been told that since I was a freshman. So, no matter where we're going to go, it's going to be a good football game. It's a 4-quarter football game. So we know it's going to be a dog fight, but we believe that, obviously this is the best opponent we play because it's the next one. So, we're ready to just go in there, have fun and play football.
Thanks to head coach Kevin Brockton, the Bloomington Central Catholic Saints off to a great start this year, 5-0, already playoff eligible. They're on a roll. Definitely a team to watch around the area. So, guys, kind of wrapping things up here this week, we have 2 great games on the slate. We got Pekin and Metamora on our WMBD game of the week on CI Proud, and Tri-Valley at DMAC on ClutchSportsIL.com. Larry, I know me and you will have the call for Pekin and Metamora. What are you kind of looking for on Friday night?
We had a lot of talk about it earlier in the show, but Pekin has his backs against the wall. I know that's a team that almost lost every single key piece of last year's playoff team. That's a team that's hungry to show that Pekin can still have sustained success, even though they lost most of their players from last year. They're not going to go down without a fight, that's for sure. On the other hand, you got Metamora, got off to a bit of a slow start. There's so much tradition in that Metamora program, and they want to make sure that keeps going before the home stretch. So I think 2 teams are going to bring their best on Friday night. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, going off that Pekin Metamora game, Metamora had those 2 tough losses to Washington and Morton. They're trying to find their stride, bouncing back. Should be able to, find that rhythm on Friday night. But as Larry stated, Pekin backs against the wall. They want to try to win out here and get hot at the right time. But I think this should really be a battle, defensive battle especially.
Certainly, yeah, it's going to be a fun one to watch. I'm really excited again to see Metamora. Their quarterback Nick Rhodes had a really good game last week. Both running the ball and throwing the ball. He's one of so many great dual threat quarterbacks in the Mid-Atlantic this year. Obviously, Jude Hart being one of them. Over at Dunlap, you got Max Sutter and Johnny Bargan, who we'll see maybe a bit later in the year. They're more pocket passers. Can certainly also roll out and get down with their legs as well. Tyler Humphrey from Washington, another guy that specializes with his legs. I think Rhodes could have a shot that you can make the case that he may be one of the better ones in the conference. So excited to see what him and the Metamora attack can do. And also with Tri-Valley and DMAC again, we mentioned DMAC. They're suffering some big injuries. Some of their biggest guys coming into the year, they're starting running backs, Brett Dennison, Tice Albritton, and Chuck Hathaway, their quarterback, all went down with injuries. We don't know for sure yet if any of them are going to be coming back for Friday. We certainly hope that some of them are able to. But even still, this DMAC team is certainly fighting. They'll have to fight a lot against a state-ranked Tri-Valley team. But again, it's always fun to go out to DMAC, and you never know what can happen.
It's true. You don't have that injury report that you get in the NFL. So, you go into Friday night kind of guessing, which makes it all the more fun. You'll have to tune in and see.
Yeah, DMAC's, looking to bounce back after that loss to Eureka. You never know. You catch them on the right night, could pull off an upset against Tri-Valley. But right now, Tri-Valley looking like a pretty tough team to beat. So should be exciting, I think, both games that we'll have on the broadcast here.
Certainly I know, Eureka maybe wasn't feeling the hottest about DMAC. I'm sure that's, it's always a good HOIC rivalry there. They're probably going to be cheering for DMAC this week because if the Chiefs can take down Tri-Valley at home, that's a big win for Eureka in their HOIC title chances, and I think could significantly shake things up a bit. So should be a really good game out in Mackinac. We'll have that for you at 7 p.m. on clutchsportsal.com and our YouTube channel, and Pekin Metamora at 7:30 p.m. on ciproud.com. Excited to have you tune in, maybe pull up a little dual screen and watch both games at the same time. Should be lots of fun. But guys, I think that about wraps it up for this edition of the In the Clutch podcast from my great co-hosts Larry Larson and John Camosa. I'm Jonathan Michaels saying it's so long. We'll talk to you next week. And we'll also hope to hear from you on Friday night for our games of the week. Until then, talk to you later, folks. Have a good one.